Welcome to this video on trade. We will explore the different aspects of trade, from its definition and methods to various types and their impacts. This video will cover the definition of trade, methods of trade such as barter and currency, and various types of trade including local, regional, and international trade. We will also look at the origin, development, organization, and impact of these trade types. Trade is defined as the buying and selling of goods and services for mutual benefit. Factors leading to the emergence of trade include the production of surplus goods, specialization, the desire to satisfy human needs, unequal distribution of resources, and the need to strengthen human relations. Barter trade is the exchange of goods and services for other goods or services. Examples include the Maasai exchanging livestock products for grains from the Agikuyu, or the Berbers exchanging clothes and other items for kola nuts and ivory. Historically, silent trade or dumb barter was used when a common language was absent. Barter is still used in modern times. The advantages of barter trade include its usefulness when there is no currency, meeting the demands of subsistence-level economies and people like hunters and gatherers, and its effectiveness for acquiring essential needs when no other method of trade is available. Disadvantages of barter trade include the lack of a measure of values, difficulty in establishing a, quote, double coincidence of demands, the challenge of carrying heavy goods over long distances, the perishability of some goods, difficulty in bargaining due to language barriers, and the indivisibility of some trade items like animals. Currency trade involves the use of money to buy commodities or pay for services. Money is an item accepted as a medium of exchange or a measure of value. In pre-colonial Africa, items like gold dust, cloth, copper rods, iron, and cowrie shells were used as currency. A currency should have several characteristics. It must be acceptable by the society, durable to retain quality, divisible into smaller units, and remain stable to give a stable value over the years. Money offers several advantages. It is convenient and not bulky. It serves as a store of wealth and is divisible into smaller units. It is used as a measure of value for goods and services and acts as a standard means of settling delayed payment. Local trade is the exchange of goods between people within the same geographical area. Its development was driven by people producing different items, a continuous supply of goods, and periods of peace. Local trade was organized among individuals, families, clans, and neighboring villages. It was conducted in small, local markets on set days. Trade routes facilitated movement, and the variety of items exchanged depended on the locality. Today, local trade is generally trade within a country. The impact of local trade included promoting good relations between communities and boosting regional trade. It led to the adoption of cultural practices, intermarriages, and the development of trading centers that grew into towns. It also supported the emergence of early industries and chiefdoms through tributes paid by traders. Regional trade is conducted between two or more geographical regions or regions of a continent. In regional trade, the geographical area is larger, there is a greater variety of goods, and more traders are involved, often including middlemen. Examples of regional trade include the trans-Saharan trade between the Sudanic states and North Africa. Another example is the long-distance trade, such as that between the Akamba and the Arabs at the coast. The exact start of the trans-Saharan trade is unknown. Initially, merchants used horse-drawn chariots, but camels were introduced around the 1st century AD due to increased aridity. The trade expanded significantly from the 7th century and flourished between the 8th and 16th centuries AD, especially after the Muslim Arabs conquered North Africa. Several factors facilitated the trans-Saharan trade's growth, including the camel's introduction for transport in harsh conditions, capital provided by the Berbers, and oases offering essential watering points. High demand for goods in both North and West Africa also spurred growth. The trade benefited from the Tuaregs acting as guides, well-established trade routes, and the unifying effect of Islam's spread. Availability of diverse goods, like gold and slaves from West Africa, and salt and copper from North Africa, was key. Powerful kings, like Mansa Musa, encouraged the trade and provided security. The organization of the trade was financed by wealthy North African merchants. They gathered goods and organized caravans, which could consist of up to 1,000 camels. Tuaregs and Berbers were contracted as guides and guards for the long 3 to 4 month journey. Some used silent barter or local agents for trade. The main trans-Saharan trading routes connected key locations. These routes included Fez to Timbuktu, Sijilmassa to Timbuktu, and Tripoli to the Kanem-Bornu region, among others, facilitating movement across the vast desert. Trade goods from Western Sudan included slaves, pepper, gold, ivory, and kola nuts. From North Africa, goods included salt, spices, beads, iron tools, weapons, and cowrie shells. Wealthy North African merchants played crucial roles by providing trade goods, organizing caravans from the north, and loaning capital and camels to traders. The Tuaregs of the Sahara provided essential services, guarding caravans, watering animals, offering food and accommodation, protecting oases, guiding caravans, acting as interpreters, and serving as middlemen for trade products. Western Sudan people, such as the Hausa and Asante, provided trade goods. Their rulers regulated the supply and production of these goods and provided security within their territories. Traders faced several problems, including loss of direction, long and tiring journeys, attacks by hostile tribes, inadequate supplies of food and water, and sandstorms. Other challenges were extreme temperatures, language barriers, inter-community wars, and rivalry over trade control. Factors leading to the decline of the trans-Saharan trade included the exhaustion of key trade items like gold and salt, competition from the transatlantic trade, and increased insecurity as Tuaregs began robbing traders. The Turkish invasion and colonization of North Africa also played a role. Further contributing to the decline was the disruption of trade due to European invasion of Moroccan ports and the weakening of powerful kingdoms like Mali and Songhai, which accelerated insecurity. The invasion of Western Sudan by Morocco in 1590 and European penetration also affected the trade. The trans-Saharan trade had a significant impact. It influenced culture and religion, stimulated the growth of urban centers like Timbuktu, and provided a vital link between West Sudan and North Africa. It also led to intermarriages and the spread of Islam and its education system. The trade created a new class of wealthy traders and introduced new goods. It brought Islamic law and administration to West Sudan, but also led to the destruction of wildlife and the rise of strong empires. Positive impacts included the introduction of camels and horses for transport and iron tools that boosted agriculture. However, the introduction of guns increased warfare, and the slave trade resulted in depopulation, insecurity, and attracted enemies like the Moroccans. International trade is commerce between different nations. The transatlantic trade, also called the triangular trade, occurred across the Atlantic Ocean between Africa, America, and Europe. The transatlantic trade began in the 15th century due to Portuguese and Spanish exploration. With the discovery and colonization of the Americas in the 16th century, slaves were exported there from West Africa to provide cheap labor in plantations and mines. This trade grew significantly from 1550 as Europeans colonized large parts of North and South America. Major colonizers included France and Canada, Britain in the USA, Portugal and Brazil, and Spain in Latin America. Europe traded goods for slaves in West Africa, with the Portuguese, Dutch, British, and French being key participants. By 1650, slaves replaced gold as the main export from West Africa, and the trade peaked in the 18th century. Factors leading to the trade's development included existing European trade links with West Africa, the introduction of firearms making slave raids easier, increased demand for slaves in American plantations and mines, and an increased supply of slaves. African chiefs developed a taste for European goods, like clothes and firearms, and improved shipbuilding technology facilitated the profitable trade. The transatlantic trade was organized across 3 continents: Africa, America, and Europe. The main participants were European nations such as Portugal, Spain, Holland, Britain, France, and African rulers. Goods traded from Europe to West Africa included clothes, knives, enamel bowls, guns and ammunition, sugar, jewelry, copperware, glassware, and tobacco. Goods traded from America to Europe included sugar, tobacco, cotton, spirits like rum, and ironware metal bars. West Africa exported gold, ivory, hides, pepper, gum, and beeswax to Europe. Crucially, slaves were the main export from West Africa to America. Slaves were the major commodity in this trade. Captured individuals were marched to the coast, locked in warehouses, and then shipped across the Atlantic Ocean, often chained together. In America, slaves were auctioned to work as plantation workers, miners, and domestic servants, often bartered for European goods. The transatlantic trade began its decline around 1770. In 1807, the British Parliament made the decision to abolish the slave trade, making slaves as an item of trade increasingly unpopular. Factors leading to the decline included the Industrial Revolution, where machines replaced manual labor. The independence of America in 1776 reduced Britain's need for slaves in its colonies. The French Revolution spread ideas of liberty and equality, leading many to question slavery. Economists also argued that free men were more productive than slaves. Christian missionaries and humanitarians actively campaigned against slave trading. The American Civil War of 1861 to 1865 resulted in the abolition of slave trade in the USA. Frequent slave revolts and the closure of American slave markets also contributed to the decline. Christian revival movements condemned the trade as evil. The abolition of the slave trade between 1817 and 1830 led to its replacement by legitimate trade between Europe and West Africa. Africans also played a role. For example, King Nzinga of Congo wrote to Portugal to stop buying slaves, and former slave Olaudah Equiano wrote a book against the evils of the trade. The transatlantic trade caused immense suffering, destroying African homes and families, leading to separation and displacement. Many slaves died during capture and transit. The trade led to depopulation, removing young, able-bodied people, and increased intercommunity conflicts through the use of guns. Traditional African industries were weakened by cheap manufactured imports. Some African communities and leaders gained wealth from selling slaves. However, the trade generally slowed economic development in Africa. Conversely, countries like Britain gained immense wealth, enabling industrialization. Africans developed a taste for European manufactured goods. The trade led to the rise of states like Asante and the foundation of Liberia and Sierra Leone for freed slaves. Gender roles changed, as men were sold into slavery, leaving women as heads of families. The transatlantic trade contributed to the decline of the trans-Saharan trade and the destruction of property during wars. It resulted in intermarriage and the growth of the mulatto population along the West African coast. It left Africa unprepared for European colonization. In Europe, it spurred the development of ports like Liverpool and created a wealthy class of traders who invested in plantations. It also led to the settlement of Africans in America. This concludes our video on international trade. Here are some Kcse sample questions to consider, starting with, what is meant by local trade?